So the next one is Vedic literature is the singular most important source at understanding the religious trends of Vedic age. Illustrate. So here also it's illustrate. So you are going to present. I didn't give much of critically evaluate kind of questions because this is the first test. Critically evaluate will become difficult. Even this is difficult. So you see. So here it asks us to present the religious belief of Vedic religion with the help of literature. So any one of you like some inputs, what you have understood, what you have written, if you have written anything, please present, because you see, let it be 100% wrong, no problem, but you have to speak out. That's one very important thing. It's not that you have sat here only to give a 100% perfect answer. It's not, no, it's a learning process and it's a first step for you, and it's very fine if you are going to write you see total crap, that's also fine, but you see, you learn to speak out. That will be very helpful. And don't think no one is going to judge you here or anything. You are all beginners. We also have gone through the process and we know how it is, how the learning process is. So don't fear about anything, how your answer is going to be, how your language is going to be, or how you are going to talk. Don't have such apprehensions, and please, someone of you, what you have understood of the question.
Sir, I wrote about Vedas, 4 Vedas.
Okay.
And then Brahmanas and Samhitas and Upanishads, Aryankas. So few points about them.
Okay.
And then like in the concluding para, I wrote like early Vedic period, they used to worship Indra, Agni and Varuna gods.
Okay.
But in later Vedic period, they started worshipping of Vishnu, Shiva and all.
Okay.
So sacrifices were more important in the later Vedic period.
Okay.
So through Brahmanas, we can know that. Like in
Okay.
Satapatha Brahmanas, they mentioned that sacrifices became more important in later Vedic period. So I wrote about them.
Okay. Fine. Fine. Yeah. Good. Anyone? Anyone else? Anyone else? Something, at least you see, try to tell me what you have understood of the question, or how you want to. Okay, if you have not read, if you have not written, also no, not a problem. But how you want to present it. And anyways, the slide is on the screen. You can tell that also. Okay, fine. The next time, someone else of you should speak apart from Deepika. Fine. I'm not going to punish you. Don't worry. So you see, yeah, that's how I mean, the Vedic literature, it actually is a huge corpus. Whatever I have given on the screen, that all makes the Vedic literature. And what Deepika has said, that is how you have to approach the question. You see, like whatever Vedic, it's better like you can, if you can remember all these things and give one pointer to each, how you are, what is it you understood through these about the religion. Okay. If that is the case, it will be very fine. That will be a complete answer. Then I think I don't know how many marks that person, because I prepared these answers at the luxury at sitting in my room and laid back. But in exam, yeah, it would be difficult to bring everything to mind. But make an attempt that you will be able to present the best possible. So you see, here again you will give with an introduction. With the absence of archaeological findings, literary sources happens to be the chief source of understanding the religious beliefs of Vedic age, and Shruti and Smriti literature helps us, which forms the corpus of the Vedic literature, helps us in understanding. So, and we share the same is examined. And I mean, you will say that, and you will go below, and you will take each of it. So Shruti literature, it comprises of Vedas, Aranyakas, Brahmanas and Upanishads, and Smriti literature, which comprises of Vedangas, Puranas, Upavedas, Itihasas and Shabdarshans. And then for each one you can give an example. Like in Vedas, if you take Vedas and Brahmanas, they chiefly point towards a ritualistic culture, a sacrificial culture. So that is how it is in Vedic age. You see, Vedic age, there was no ideal worship. The kind of, I'll at times, okay, I'll speak something which is not so much related to the I mean, what is that, the question or the syllabus or history. Probably it will make things interesting. You see, when you see at our modern religion or the contemporary religion, what comes to our mind? You see, what comes to our mind? Any one of you? If you're talking about religion, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Anyone? Tell no, like what comes to your mind? If I'm asking you about, tell me something about religion, what is that which comes first to your mind?
So religious books or the rituals which they follow in a particular religion.
Okay, fine. And anything else? What comes religion until like what comes to your mind? Very common, you see.
Which god are you like you're worshipping?
Yeah, fine. Okay, true. And then temple. Temple comes to our mind, right? Temple, and you see, you get an image of God. Even if you go and see at the contemporary man, if you go to your home, so you see, even in when one is believing or practicing Hindu, you see, most of the Hindus, they have a space or a place dedicated in home for God, and there will be idols and you see kind of thing, puja room. And when you go to temple also, there will be idols. You see, that comes to your mind, right? But that's not how religion was in Vedic age. There was no idolatry at all. There were no idols. There was no temple only. Temple comes somewhere, like you see, even not even during Buddhism, Jainism, many centuries later, temple comes to existence. And how temple comes is also a very interesting story. It's actually against the religion, but then it becomes a religion. That's a part of bhakti and all bhakti movement. So you see, that's how things evolve and change. So I just told it to make it, you see, at least something interesting to you. And so when you come back to the question again, you see, you have all the Shruti literature and Smriti literature and Vedas and Brahmanas. You will say like the religion was chiefly ritualistic religion. It was a sacrificial cult, and fire as the center of worship. That is how you understand religion. You see, and the rituals they chiefly point towards materialistic culture. You see, when you look at Vedas especially, when you look at and Brahmanas, the rituals were always conducted or performed by the Yajmani they call it, okay, for benefit of material goods. You see, either for cattle, Pashu and Praja. Those are the two main what you call wealth or possessions. Or when we look at today, you see, for today, what is the important thing, you see, for people apart from money? You see, it's like real estate. You see, land. You see, real estate, or the more land you possess, the more rich you are, or land becomes the central identity. That's how real estate is booming. But in those days, it was Pashu. Pashu is like, you see, uh, cow, cow wealth, chiefly because with the Aryans coming to this subcontinent or this geographical land, cow becomes their wealth. So it's always cow. And okay, if you have cows, it's not enough. No, like you can't just spend your life with cow. You have to have people whom you can dominate and where you can become a king or something. So that is praja. You see, you need Pasu and Praja. And Praja is your own progeny. Again, there are two kinds of Praja. Your own progeny, who is going to continue your lineage or your dominance on the rest. And also some other people who are going to be dominated and who is going to serve you. So these are the two things which people did all their rituals and sacrifices for. One is Praja and the other is Pashu. And it's a ritualistic kind of ritualistic and sacrificial cult that has come into picture. And next, then we will speak about Aranyakas. You see, Aranyakas, it is actually a kind of bridge between the Vedas and Upanishads. I mean, Samhitas and Upanishads. When you see, like, you see, this is an answer we can already, I mean, answer you can write it with few examples. Just like to make it a bit interesting, or for you to develop your understanding, it's kind of evolution. When you take Vedas, it consists of Samhitas, Aranyakas, Samhitas, Brahmanas, Aranyakas, and Upanishads. Sorry, I have mentioned the wrong thing. So Samhitas are chiefly like Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharvana Veda. and they speak mostly about the ritualistic culture. And Brahmanas also more or less speak about the same. And Aranyakas, they act as a bridge between the you see the Vedas, the ritualistic or the materialistic understanding, and the philosophical understanding. So Aranyakas are something which act as a bridge. So even when you see like in Vedic age or in Indian tradition, there are ashrama system which evolved, which started its evolution during Vedic age. There are 4 ashramas. You see, Brahmacharya, Grihasya, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa. You see, so sannyasa ashram is something where the people go into aranyas, you see, or the forests. So that is how the forest books have come. You see, the people they have gone into forest, they have partially retired into, you see, from the materialistic world, and they have come in contact with some tribal cultures existing there who are in close integrity with the nature, which again brings something fresh into their minds apart from materialistic culture. And then that is how Aranyakas have come, the understanding of nature, its importance. And that brings you to the philosophy or the metaphysical aspect, which the Upanishads speak about. You see, Upanishads interpret the Vedic, the materialistic Vedic ceremonies or all these things in a very metaphysical way. You see, for example, when you say Kathopanishad, I think some of you might have heard of it, a character called Nachiketa. Who comes in contact with Yamadharmaraja, and then it's a dialogue between these two people, and it speaks about salvation and all these things. So there, like when you read Kathopanishad, it gives a completely philosophical understanding of what a ritual is. You see, when you look at Veda says like you have to place a fire altar, and then you have to put fire, and then you have to offer ghee, and then you see the fumes, the fire god will take it, convey that to the gods, and gods will give you this. That is how it is written. When you come to Upanishads, the Upanishads interpret, you see, the fire altar is your heart, and the fire is your inquisitiveness or your interest to know the self. And then you see, then the god or the whatever it is, the Brahman, that's the concept which is brought about in Upanishads. The Brahman will relieve to yourselves. I mean, that's how the evolution of the Vedic literature takes place. I mean, that's just to help you to broaden your understanding. So in the answer, you can write Upanishads. Upanishads help in understanding the philosophy. You see, various concepts like transmigration of soul, or the concept of Brahman, or Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha is like singularity. You see, when we speak about quantum physics, I think you people know that singularity. That's called Hiranyagarbha, from which the explosion comes and then the universe is created. So such things like just for your interest or for your understanding. And then that's what you will mention. Vedas and Brahmanas, you will say, we give a point or a light towards the ritualistic and sacrificial culture of the Vedic people and the various kinds of gods who are worshipped, like Indra, Agni, Soma, and all. And Upanishads, you will say, Upanishads help us understanding the beginning of philosophical roots. And various, you can mention few Upanishads and which concepts they have mentioned. Like Chandogya Upanishad, it mentions about transmigration of soul. Brihadaranyaka mentions about Brahman. So few examples you can give. And coming to Smriti literature, they form all these things: Vedangas, Puranas, Upavedas, and Itihasas and Shaddarshans. Let me make some differences. So here in Vedangas, we have a total of 6. Siksha, Nirutha, Chandas, Vyakarana, Jyotishya, Kalpa. Okay, fine. And in this Kalpa helps us to understand the religious beliefs of Vedic age. And in Kalpa, we have got Grihya Sutra, Shauta Sutra, Sulva Sutras, and Dharma Sutras. These are the 4 things. And Grihya Sutras, they explain about 16 Shodasha Karmas, they call. You see, the 16 kind of practices or the rituals they perform right from the age kid is born to the death ceremony. The ceremony of death is called Antyesti. And the first one, it is called like Garbhadharma. And then the second one is Pumsavana, which is like you see praying for a male child. The third is Srimantanayana, that's like for the welfare of the mother and the kid. So there will be a total of 16 such karmas, which are spoken about in Kalpa, which again belongs to Vedangas, the 6 limbs of Vedas. Okay, so don't write everything there. Just like mention like Vedangas, of which Kalpa is an important aspect. Speaks about various rituals. For example, Grihya Sutras, or whichever you remember. Fine. Don't try to present the entire thing. Then you see you will be writing only this answer all the 2 hours. Then you will come to Puranas, and Puranas also speak about the various. Usually the Puranas speak about the kings, like the genealogy of kings. That's how actually historians use Puranas, I mean, to understand the chronology of kings. Apart from that, because the question asks for religious understanding, you can mention Vishnu Purana, Brahma Purana, and all these things, some of the Puranas, and which help you in understanding the religious structure, or you say how the religion has evolved. And then coming to Upavedas also you have 4 Upavedas, each Upaveda linked to each Veda. Fine, and then here I don't think you have much from Upavedas to learn, because they are specifically like you have Shilpa Veda, Gandharva Veda, Dhanur Veda, these things. They are actually, Upavedas are not mostly religious texts, but they give you an understanding of the skill set, you see, or the kind of art. And coming to Itihasas are the 2 great epics, Mahabharata and Ramayana. And that we can mention, and the concept, or you see the understanding of avatars, the religious understanding of it. And Shaddarshans, when you come to Shaddarshans, again you have six Shaddarshans, Sankhya, Yoga, and Vaiseshika, Nyaya, Memamsa, and Uttar Memamsa. And these are philosophical schools. You see, they are based upon the understanding from Upanishads, and then you will give like how our Shaddarshans give us a chief understanding of the philosophical aspects of it. Many of them. They are also, you see, Shaddarshans also give you understanding about scientific understanding about things. When you come to Vaiseshika, you see they are like Kanada Maharshi, he explains about the atomic theory, or you see the minutest part is called Kana, or atom, you see. So that's how there are also scientific understanding, but chiefly you see it's like because the question has demanded for religion, and also historians also they interpret most of Vedic literature or Indian literature in terms of religion, you see. That's one we don't know, controversial thing kind of, because when you come to history you have 3 kinds of writing of history. One is called Indology, one is called national historiography, the third thing is called Marxist. Indology was one which is written by Britishers. Those are the first history books or interpretation of history, and they have showed the Indian history in a poor light, they say. And then comes national history, which glorifies history. It says everything originates here, or you see they did plastic surgeries in the past and all. We don't know if they did or not, but it over glorifies. And Marxist historiography, they say it is a balance between the two, but that is also debatable. But it's finally up to you to understand history. For UPSC sake, you can read only Marxist historiography. Those are the textbooks they follow. You need not go much deep, but for your own understanding, you can understand things in a greater or broader way. So this is about what is that? Vedic literature vis-a-vis the religion of Vedic people. You'll put all these things, and in the final, like in the conclusion, you can say Vedic religion is you have to use certain words like it's a henotheistic religion, it's a naturalistic religion, you see, worshipping the elements of nature. So from the above evidences, we can say that Vedic religion is a henotheistic religion, chiefly worshipping the natural sources, natural forces, and the Vedic literature gives a great understanding of the same. With that, you can conclude the answer. Yeah. Anyone? I mean, if you want to ask anything, any questions or. Fine. The next one. Okay, I mean, you're okay with the previous answer, the discussion. Did you guys get it? Understood it? Hand raise at least. I'm not just reading out the answers. You see, that is not useful also for you at this point. Just to give out the answer and you taking down the answer material. I mean, at this point, I think I don't feel that's much useful. I'm just trying to, you see, help you understand how a question should be understood and how an answer should be written. So don't worry if you are not getting all that, you see, all these facts or all that. You have just begun the things. So my intention at least is to give you an understanding of things. You see, that's all. Your perfection is a very later thing. That don't worry about that thing. You just like focus on, okay, this is how the question should be interpreted. Okay, this is how the answer should be written. That's my intention. Fine, not to give you a perfect answer. Perfect answer, it's not a problem, and there's no point also. You just by adding the answer or looking at the pointers. Okay.